Men often feel controlled or manipulated in their relationships, even if they can't quite put their finger on why. This isn't usually due to conscious malice, but rather from 6 psychological tactics women unconsciously use. These tactics have evolved over millions of years and only work on men who are vulnerable to them. Understanding them is the first step toward becoming immune. The 6 unconscious psychological tactics. 1. Withdrawal and emotional distance. When she becomes quiet, distant, or emotionally unavailable without explanation, you might panic, review your actions, and try to figure out what you did wrong. This isn't personal punishment, it's an unconscious test of your desperation and her control over your emotions. The more you chase, the more you prove your emotional stability depends on her attention. This tactic keeps you on your toes, creating an artificial scarcity that makes her attention seem more valuable when it returns. 2. Mirroring and false compatibility. In the early stages of a relationship, she might unconsciously adapt her personality, interests, and values to match what she thinks you want in a partner. This helps secure your attachment during the vulnerable bonding period. Once she's confident in your commitment, her true personality emerges, and her interest in previously shared activities may decrease. This isn't intentional deceit, her biology programmed her to maximize appeal to secure attachment. 3. Guilt deployment and responsibility transfer. She might make you responsible for her emotional state by expressing hurt or sadness in ways that imply your actions caused her distress. This exploits the social pressure on men to keep their partners happy. When she's upset, you automatically assume you did something wrong and try to fix it, modifying your behavior to prevent her distress. This tactic uses your desire to be a good partner against you, training you through guilt-based conditioning. It can lead to self-doubt, as she may blame you for being insecure if you voice concerns, even when your instincts are correct. 4. Hot and cold emotional cycles. She might alternate between periods of intense affection and attention, hot, and periods of distance and coldness, cold. This creates intermittent reinforcement, making her positive attention psychologically addictive. When she's hot, you feel valued and secure. When she's cold, you become desperate to regain her affection, constantly focusing on the relationship and working to maintain her positive regard. The unpredictability of her affection creates a psychological addiction. 5. Suggestion and indirect influence. Instead of making direct requests, she might plant ideas in your mind through casual comments or stories. She might mention things she likes, romantic gestures other men have made, or experiences she's never had. She's not telling you what to do but subtly influencing you to take actions that make her happy. This leverages the difference in communication styles, men being direct, women often using implication, making you feel like you're choosing to do these things. 6. Love bombing and emotional overwhelm. In the early phase, she might provide intense affection, attention, and validation, creating powerful psychological bonds. This isn't conscious manipulation, her brain is flooded with chemicals causing intense connection. This rapid progression of affection, e.g., "you're so handsome," to "I love you," in days, gets you fully invested and vulnerable. Love bombing serves a strategic biological function, creating emotional dependency that makes it difficult to leave later, as the memory of the intense early connection becomes the standard. Additional manipulation patterns. Beyond these primary tactics, other patterns operate similarly. Sneaky guilt trip. She agrees to something, then expresses disappointment later that it wasn't what she wanted, making you feel guilty for not reading her mind. Insulting sarcasm disguised as humor, cutting comments disguised as jokes undermine your confidence. If you react negatively, she can claim you can't take a joke. Silent treatment. She withdraws communication and affection without explanation when she doesn't get her way, punishing you passive-aggressively. Withholding intimacy and affection. Similar to the silent treatment, she becomes physically or emotionally unavailable, often after something didn't go her way, using it as punishment. It's your fault tactic. She makes you responsible for her negative emotions, even if they are unrelated to you, absolving herself of accountability. Never wrong pattern. she refuses to admit mistakes or apologize, always being right in disagreements. This might stem from insecurity or a desire to maintain dominance. Modern amplification and biological basis. Modern technology, like social media and dating apps, has amplified these tactics. She can now deploy withdrawal through seen messages, create suggestion through curated content, and trigger jealousy through online interactions. The crucial insight is that these tactics are not conscious cruelty but unconscious biological programs. They are designed to evaluate male psychological strength and secure optimal relationship outcomes from an evolutionary perspective. Women don't consciously choose to deploy them any more than men choose to find certain traits attractive. They are biological imperatives serving functions that aided survival and reproduction. This biological foundation explains why reasoning with or trying to eliminate these behaviors through discussion rarely works. You're dealing with unconscious programming that responds to environmental triggers, not logical arguments. Developing immunity. The solution isn't changing her behavior, but developing immunity to these tactics. This requires building psychological strength that makes external emotional pressure irrelevant to your decision-making. When withdrawal doesn't make you chase, guilt trips don't generate desired responses, and hot and cold cycles don't create addiction, she stops using them. Building this immunity involves developing compelling purposes, so strong that relationship drama seems trivial. Becoming comfortable with solitude, so companionship is optional, not necessary. Building robust self-esteem, so others' approval is nice to have, rather than essential. These tactics function as comprehensive testing systems, identifying and exploiting psychological weaknesses. They evaluate your emotional stability, boundary strength, independence, and susceptibility to control. A man who succumbs lacks the psychological strength for leadership and protection. One who remains unaffected possesses mental fortitude that female biology finds attractive. Unconscious manipulation isn't an attack, it's an evaluation of your character, determining if you're strong enough for long-term relationship responsibility. The cruel irony is that men most vulnerable often care most about their relationships. Their genuine desire to make partners happy becomes the weakness exploited. However, caring shouldn't mean sacrificing psychological well-being or self-respect. The right response. The wrong approach is trying to make her conscious of what she's doing, hoping awareness will eliminate the behaviors. Consciousness doesn't override biology, it only makes the programming more sophisticated. The right approach is developing such strong internal validation that external emotional pressure becomes powerless. This means cultivating psychological sovereignty, engaging with women from a position of strength, not neediness. When her unconscious manipulation tactics don't work, she faces a crisis. This forces her to develop conscious relationship skills. Some women will escalate their manipulation, revealing themselves as poor relationship candidates who prioritize power over partnership. Others will develop authentic communication skills and appreciate your strength, recognizing your immunity makes you a more valuable long-term partner. This difference reveals her true character. Manipulation as a testing framework. These tactics are sophisticated evaluation systems. Every tactic serves dual functions: immediate goal achievement and gathering information about your character and boundaries. For example, withdrawal tests your emotional stability, guilt tactics test if you'll accept responsibility for her emotions. These tests operate continuously, providing ongoing assessments of your psychological strength and relationship potential. The biological logic is ruthless. Women need men who can provide leadership, protection, and stability under pressure. A man who crumbles under psychological manipulation can't be trusted with real-world threats. Achieving profound immunity. The transformation to immunity is profound but achievable. Develop compelling purposes. Relationship approval becomes secondary to mission accomplishment. Become internally complete. External validation becomes irrelevant to your self-worth. This psychological independence makes you immune to unconscious control while allowing authentic connection. You can love without being manipulated, care without being controlled, and engage without losing yourself. Steps to immunity. Recognize the patterns, learn to identify subtle shifts in behavior as manipulation tactics are happening, not just in retrospect. Emotional detachment from outcomes. Develop psychological strength to remain stable when she withdraws, unaffected by guilt, and unresponsive to hot and cold cycles. Your emotional state becomes independent of her tactics. Develop alternative sources of validation. When your worth comes from internal sources, mission, values, personal development, external manipulation loses its power. Maintain boundaries consistently. Every time you hold your ground, you train her unconscious programming that these strategies don't work. Inconsistency reinforces their effectiveness. The diagnostic function of manipulation. Her unconscious testing is a diagnostic process to determine your psychological category. This explains why some women create relationship drama. They're stress testing your system to understand how you operate under pressure. This drama reveals your emotional triggers, insecurity patterns, and control mechanisms. The most sophisticated women conduct these tests early to establish a baseline psychological profile, which helps predict and influence your responses in future conflicts. Workplace and pharmaceutical analogies. Workplace. An employee constantly questioning decisions and threatening to quit would be terminated. Yet, men tolerate similar behavior in relationships, believing love means accepting disrespect. Respect is earned through consistent value and competence. Pharmaceutical industry. New medications are stress tested to ensure effectiveness. Women conduct similar stress tests on male psychology through manipulation, evaluating if your framework holds under adverse conditions. A man whose authority crumbles isn't suitable for leading a family. Military training. Training is made harder when recruits struggle to develop people who function effectively under stress. Women apply similar logic, wanting men who become better leaders when conditions are challenging. Your response to her most unreasonable demands often matters more than to her reasonable requests. The power of consistent resistance. Successfully resisting manipulation makes it less frequent. When you consistently demonstrate your psychological framework is non-negotiable, she stops testing as often. But inconsistent responses reset the cycle, making her testing more frequent and intense, similar to how gambling becomes addictive due to unpredictable rewards. Consistency in resisting manipulation isn't just about winning battles, it's about ending the war, allowing her to redirect energy towards supporting your leadership. Long-term psychological consequences. Men who consistently fail these tests can develop accommodation addiction, a compulsive need to modify behavior to avoid conflict. This spreads to all areas of life, making them vulnerable to manipulation from all sources. Conversely, the psychological strength to resist unconscious female manipulation serves you in every context requiring leadership, independence, and authentic self-expression. When immune to emotional pressure from women, you become immune to it from everyone. Escalation as a biological emergency. When subtle manipulation tactics fail, she might escalate, e.g., disappearing for days, creating dramatic emotional scenes. This isn't conscious strategy but biological programming trying to regain control through increased intensity. Her unconscious mind interprets your immunity as a malfunction requiring powerful intervention. The woman who escalates is experiencing a biological emergency, panicking because her primary control mechanisms aren't working. Understanding this prevents you from taking it personally. She's not choosing to be more manipulative, but experiencing biological panic. The difference between women who escalate versus those who adapt reveals fundamental differences in psychological health and relationship potential. Conclusion: the untouchable power of a psychologically immune man. Modern men aren't failing in relationships because they don't care enough, love enough, or try hard enough. They're failing because they've been conditioned to be emotionally open without ever being taught how to defend their psychological core. They've been trained to accommodate, to soothe, to submit, all while sacrificing their backbone. And in doing so, they trade their masculine edge for approval they never truly receive. They're praised for being sensitive, right up until the moment their sensitivity becomes unattractive. They apologize to avoid conflict. They tiptoe to keep the peace. And in the process, they lose the very thing that made them worthy of respect in the first place, their unshakable center. Here's the uncomfortable truth: when a woman tests you, through withdrawal, guilt, sarcasm, or emotional chaos, she's not trying to tear you down. She's unconsciously trying to find out if there's anything real beneath your surface. She's asking, is this a man I can trust when the world turns upside down? Will he stay grounded when I spin out? Because if you can't lead yourself, how could you ever lead her? Women are biologically wired to test. It's not cruelty, it's survival. And that's why arguing, pleading, or explaining your side doesn't work. You're not facing a rational disagreement. You're facing an instinctual probe. One that only strength can answer. Psychological immunity isn't about becoming cold or emotionally numb. It's about becoming unbreakable. It's about remaining internally stable while everything around you shifts. You don't chase. You don't flinch. You don't trade your values for temporary affection. You observe, respond with clarity, and walk away when necessary. This is how a man becomes untouchable, not through domination or manipulation, but through self-possession. When her tactics no longer penetrate your frame, the power dynamic shifts. She either levels up or reveals her immaturity. And you? You stay rooted either way. Some women, unable to control you, will spiral. That's not your failure, it's their exposure. Others will rise, shed the games, and meet you in truth. That's the reward of mastery. But either way, the outcome no longer controls you. So stop trying to change women. Stop pleading for peace, begging for love, or explaining yourself to someone determined to test you. Instead, fortify your inner world. Develop the stillness that can't be shaken. Cultivate a purpose so strong that relationship drama feels like background noise. Because in a world dominated by chaos and emotional instability, the man who remains composed, who refuses to bend, break, or beg, stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. Rare. Respected. Relentlessly grounded. That is psychological immunity. That is the new standard of masculine strength. Be the man who doesn't just survive manipulation, but renders it useless by becoming immune. Be the man she can't shake. Be the man the world cannot ignore.